For the queens, sisters manifesting their dreams. Get your cream by any means and beam with self-esteem. Beauty supreme and booty walk so mean. The way you fit in them jeans, you eat your cornbread and greens. Dance or a doctor, red wine or vodka. Redesign your spot and redefine your mantra. Retwist your locks and realign your chakras. Doing your squats and getting closer to God, huh? Brunching with your squad or taking a girl's trip. Adjust your crown, you God's gift to the world, sis. Celestial body, drink your water. Meditate, sun-kissed goddess, heavenly order. Levitate, tribe of Ashanti, black girl magic, melanin popping, whether you ratchet or lavish, whether you bougie or savage, you a gift and a treasure. You got to love a black girl getting a shift together. Black girls are getting a shift together. These black girls getting a shift together, man. These black girls are getting a shift together. These black girls getting a shift together, dog. When God made you, boo, you know he showed out. Mahogany enchantress, blessings overflow now. Picture of success, seductive silhouettes on a spiritual quest. Manifest and be blessed. Mother, sister, auntie, tribe of Ashanti. Rocking your locks, I got a close crop blondie. The curse and the gift, uplift, apply pressure. Nothing like a black girl getting a shift together. Nothing like a black girl getting a shift together. Nothing like a black girl getting a shift together. Black girls are getting a shift together. Black girls are getting a shift together, man. These black girls are getting a shift together, man. These black girls are getting a shift together.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Black Girls Getting Their Shit Together. This is a podcast about mental health and wellness, as well as self-empowerment for Black women. I'm your host, Ursula. I'm a certified life coach and mental health and wellness advocate. And each week, I promise to deliver relevant topics and resources that affect our community. So just remember, once you can identify the issue is when we can start to heal. Welcome to season 2. And speaking of season 2, it's coming to an end, but no worries. I'm going to have content coming on in between the hiatus, but thank you for returning. And just want to let everybody know my website has launched. I launched the baby. I gave birth to the baby on Monday. Come over, visit the baby, come over, visit the website and see how it's going and everything I have to offer on it. And I want to thank everybody for participating in the survey that I had. And I listened to the survey. So with that, I created some courses in my life coaching packages. And I hear you, self-care, self-care, self-care. It's coming, but you need to go to the website so you can see all the details. And remember that the link is in the show description. So I have group or one-on-one packages, merchandise, digital products, etc. I want you all to come in and say hello. Let me know where you're tuning in from. We already have people coming. Wow. Already people are coming in already. I love it. But yeah, tell me hello. Tell me where you're tuning in from. If it's a replay, make sure and type replay in the comments so that I know where you're coming from. All right, we're going to get right into this. I have a wonderful, when I say a wonderful guest, all of my guests are wonderful and special, but there is something about this brother that literally makes my soul freaking vibrate, and I'm not joking. So I'm not going to talk about it anymore. I'm going to be about it, and I'm going to bring this brother out of the waiting room and bring him on. Linton, I'm coming for you, friend. Oh.
Hello. How are you?
I am so well. I'm excited. I'm beyond excited. Oh, where do I start? Okay, everyone, let me calm down and ground myself because this topic is something else. But I have Linton Hester on. He's a psychotherapist and he's the founder of Live Better Now. I'm going to read his bio. It's very, very lush, but I'm going to read some things, but I just want you to feel how this brother's presence is. But Linton is a licensed professional counselor in the state of Georgia. He educated, oh, let me get my screen a little smaller. Excuse me, Linton. You know, I'm only 28. I got these 28-year-old eyes. But his educational background, he has two advanced degrees from Liberty University. That's interesting. And he's also a certified life coach and personal trainer, which I'm going to ask you about. And he's a proud HBCU graduate of, and I'll let you tell me.
Florida Memorial University.
Yeah.
Miami, Florida. FLOMO.
So what else is it? What else? Tell the folks about you, including with your bio. It's just, you got so much to offer.
I know. Well, I'll say this and I'll try to keep it succinct. And I'll add in just a little bit of disclosure regarding my family since the topic is regarding generational, And so I actually graduated from Florida Memorial University, which was Florida Memorial College, back in 2002. That is the day I actually graduated that morning. And I was walking the aisle that evening with my wife. So I graduated. Yeah.
Oh, God bless you both.
Yeah. So I was walking the stage that morning to receive my diploma, and I was walking the aisle to receive my bride that evening. So 21 credit hours over the summer. As time transitioned and we grew, then we ended up having twin boys, which are, I call them they are my best, my super troopers. Love those little guys. And from there, we ended up transitioning. I worked as a probation officer. From there, I was yes. And I also worked with Savannah State University. Shout out to the Tigers. And that is when I decided to transition into doing therapy, counseling, and being a psychotherapist, because I experienced a lot of challenges and issues in the lives of young people that were impediments to their education, to their, to their journey to be successful academically. And so I wanted to do a lot more than just reach them in the classroom or reach them just in limited spaces. I wanted to go to where the trauma or the issues actually stemmed from, where it derived. And so I took it upon myself, and I received my first master's in executive leadership. Was close enough to receive my counseling degree, so I took a couple more courses, went through the practicum and all, and obtained my degree in counseling. Then LPC, transitioned to receive my EMDR, and now I'm working in my own practice and also partnering with Access Mental Health to do community-based therapy to provide services in the community as well.
Amazing. We need more foot soldiers like yourself, my friend.
Hey, I just like to say I am one of many. So I'm trying to recruit more brothers into the field. So
well, you're a great role model. Seriously. So we have a lot of people coming in saying hello. Hello. Oh, my beautiful Lynn and Lori. Travis, hello. Chantel, her last name looks familiar.
Yes.
She said, yes, FLOMO.
Yes, FLOMO.
So everyone, tonight's topic is generational trauma in the Black families. This is a heavy subject, but it's so needed. It's so necessary. And it's funny how spirit works, because I met this brother on social media and he just did something but simply type in a comment on someone else's page that we both were on, and there you go. And he is very knowledgeable. I mean, he just comes with it, and he looks like us. So, how are you feeling about this topic tonight?
I am excited. I'm just very excited to be here. To be able to be, on your platform, to add a voice and some experience from a clinical perspective as well as some personal, and just to be able to shed light and to bring awareness about it. I think that's the most important thing, is to really bring conversation to it, and to help individuals gain awareness, about the issue, the topic that is at hand. I don't think that it's anything that we're not aware of, but we have not. I think what we're doing now, we're moving from contemplation to actuation. You know, from
Mm.
just thinking about the issues, thinking about the trauma, thinking about why I am the way I am, and what is, reverberating in my system and in my life and in the cycle of my lifespan, now to wanting to actually do something about it. To
Yes.
stop the trauma or to put a halt to it to some degree. So I'm excited for those who joined in, and for those who also want to provide questions and insight as well. I would love to definitely hear from them as well. So especially with questions or comments and challenges. I think we grow from challenges. So I believe if they disagree, that is, controversy is good for growth. And so I think that if it's controversial, it brings attention to the table.
Absolutely. So, if any of these comments I'm about to say sounds familiar to you, whether you disagree or not, just type yes. What stays in this house? Wait, what goes on in this house stays in this house.
Mm,
This is going to hurt me more than it's going to hurt you.
mm.
Oh, you did something bad? Go outside and get that switch and wet it and braid it. That's if you really got in trouble, right? What help me out? What other things have you heard, Linton?
Things I've heard was, it's going to hurt me more than it's going to hurt you.
Yes.
you know, and other things such as, so this boy, you act just like your dad. You look just like your dad. I'm sick of you.
Ooh.
You act just like your mama. You'll
Oh, how
never be
about
nothing.
right? How about this? If you're cracking on when you're younger and kids are going back and forth, instead of saying, "Oh, you're stupid," you a black stupid such and such.
Mm,
Like putting that
wow.
black on there is like that
Yes.
extra pain to hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
after
Yeah.
a while, it was watered down, and there are some roots of generational trauma in that.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do for everyone, if you just work with me, I am going to put something on the screen. And if you all can see this, please type yes. Let's see. So, Linton,
Yes.
I'll let you, or I'll read it and I'll let you take over. So, this page, this screen comes from Linton's Instagram page, which is Live Better Now. And here's something: I brought you in this world and I'll take you out. This is a phrase that exhibits pseudo hostility and is a method that reflects an attempt to regain control and redirect behavior, as well as recalibrate final authority.
Hmm. Yes, I brought you in this world and I'll take you out. That pseudo hostility basically is, from a family structure where authority is not finalized, or there is overt authority. Let's give an example. If you have a child who is constantly acting out, having behavioral issues, not able to express themselves, or the child has been shut out of the ability to express themselves because the mother says a child is to be what? Seen and not what?
Heard.
Not heard. Not heard. Now just imagine if you are that child and you can never really say, Mama, I'm hurt. I feel this way, or I'm upset, or I'm frustrated. What that does, that actually generates pent up anger, causes that child to not know how to express their feelings or their emotions, and eventually they'll become emotionally unavailable for their other family members, or in a relationship. I know there have been many women who talked about, well, why is my husband emotionally unavailable? Or why is my boyfriend emotionally unavailable? It starts at the root. It starts at home. When you're not able to express your feelings, and there's a clinical term for that, you find it where it's difficult to put context to your emotions, to provide verbiage to how you feel. That is actually called alexithymia, the inability to express yourself or to convey your thoughts appropriately.
Can you repeat? Hold on, let me get my pen. Because everything's always a learning lesson for me. Can you repeat that again, that name?
It's alexithymia. Alexithymia. And again, it's an inability to express yourself. And so if you've never given the space or the opportunity to express your thoughts, to express your feelings, to convey where you are and how you feel, then you're going to struggle with emotional regulation. So anything that frustrates you or resonates or reflects being shut down, being ostracized, being minimalized, then you're going to struggle with being able to express yourself. And when it resembles, anytime your present resembles your past and it's causing you to not be able to express yourself, then you're going to blow up, because eventually it's equivalent to energy. I like to equate emotions to energy. When you're excited, what happens? There's energy. When you're happy, there's energy. When you're angry, when you're mad, because that energy has to go somewhere. It's emotions. And so when your emotions become corked and it gets aggravated, like a shaken up soda can, right?
Here
shake
you
that soda
go.
can up, eventually you will pop the top and just start fizzing and you're out of control. And so just imagine, going back to the original topic of pseudo hostility, just imagine if you're a child and you're not able to express your thoughts and feelings, and you grow up not being able to express your thoughts and feelings. You become easily agitated to the point to where you don't know how to express your thoughts and feelings, because mom was never allowed to express her thoughts and feelings. We're going to generational now. Mom was never allowed to express her thoughts and feelings, and so she echoed her upbringing to her child. Children ought to be seen and not heard. So her frustration is projected onto her child, and the child echoes being seen and not heard. And so that's pent up frustration, pent up anger. And who suffers from that? The child.
The child.
The child suffers because
And
the
then
child,
their child's child and their child's child will suffer from that.
it's cyclical. That's the pattern, and regarding pseudo hostility, I want to kind of provide a definition to that. Pseudo hostility basically is trivial events that blows up when the family is actually seeking love and care.
Can you
It's a
explain
mask.
that?
Pseudo hostility. The root word of pseudo is false, fake. It's a veneer, right? Hostility, anger, aggression, frustration. It's a false aggression. It's a false hostility. It's a false sense of being angry when in actuality, you're seeking love, safety, and connection. And so the family goes through trivial issues and not really touching bases on the fact that I need love. I need you to hug me. I need you to hold me. I need you to tell me that you love me and that I feel safe. And so the family continues to bicker back and forth through pseudo hostility, as opposed to saying, son, come here. It's okay to be frustrated. Come here, daughter. It's okay to feel upset. I love you. What do you need? So we tell the child, shut up, be quiet, hush. I don't want to hear that. Pseudo. When in actuality, because it happened to mom passes the same pseudo hostility down to the child. The child in turn receives the message, the psychosocial damage, and cascades that down to their child. So it's cyclical. And what happens is that they suffer from anger, from depression, from frustration, from social withdrawal. Because if you don't want to hear me, then I don't want to be heard. And if nobody wants to hear me, then what happens? I'm going to socially withdraw because I'm not loved. Nobody sees me. Nobody wants me.
Oh my God.
And so and so goes the cycle of, frustration, anger, pent up grief, agitation, whether they call big traumas or small traumas, it's trauma. It may not be car accidents, it may not be service in war, but there is a thing that's called emotional trauma. A child or a person who has been emotionally traumatized.
Here, I get it. Oh my God, there's so much to unpack. Where do
And
I
and
start?
and you know, and I want to back up because I know that, that's been a term that we've thrown around a lot, trauma. And I want to kind of give some rudiment to trauma. Trauma basically is a deeply distressing or disturbing experience or event, right? That event augments the stress level. It changes and raises the stress level. And in the life of that person, it causes cognitive distortions in their belief system, in their interactions, and in the way they view and have experience with the outlook of the world. So it basically changes the totality of who you are
Mm,
from that experiences, and moving forward, it causes you to live a distorted or thwarted life because of the trauma. And that's what trauma is. It
mm.
changes the makeup and composition of who you are.
And I read the research shows that it can literally, it's ingrained. Like it can, is that true?
It affects the epigenetics of a person, right?
Epigenetic.
Um, and what that does, because trauma in itself, and I want to segue to generational trauma, because trauma in itself, what it does, it recalibrates the neurons in the mind, in the brain, because
Mm-hmm.
it's neuropsychology. Anytime, I'm going to give you an example. If you're driving in a car and you're texting on your phone, and by the time you look up, you are nearly at the back of a vehicle. You
Mm-hmm.
pump the brakes, right? You stampede on the brakes, and it causes you to lean forward. And when you know you're about to hit that car, what does that do to your body? It sends shock waves through your body.
Yes.
And what it does, it scrambles the neurology in your brain. And now it makes you what? More aware of potential trauma. It makes you hypersensitive to
I
your environment.
just going to say that hypersensitive. And may I add also for the listeners, and you let me know what your thoughts on it. Trauma, you don't have to actually be present to experience trauma. So going back to what Linton said about texting in the car, just say the car literally smashed right through the car in front of it and there's carnage. Okay, that right there, of course, is trauma. You are in it. So after that, the person who's the dead person, they're in the morgue. So now their family wasn't at the scene of the accident, but now they're experiencing trauma, but they weren't at the accident. They're trauma from their lost loved one. Or if somebody heard the accident, that's traumatic in itself. Or
Yes.
you see what I'm saying? So I want people to know you don't have to actually be there, but trauma can be passed. Just
Yes.
like our ancestors, we didn't experience slavery because we weren't physically there, but there are residual effects of it.
Yes. And that's in essence is actually secondary trauma, or what someone
Mm,
would call vicarious trauma. You experience the
really?
trauma through another person, as far as as someone could say it's an innocent bystander. An innocent bystander can see an incident or something traumatic happen, and they experience that as far as a witness, and that's called secondary or vicarious trauma. So you
Mm,
don't have to be the victim of the trauma, but you can be a bystander of the trauma and experience the same effects of trauma, which is vicarious or secondary trauma.
wow. Can you explain epigenetics?
Epigenetics basically, it doesn't change the composition of your DNA, but it's called chemical markers, right? I'm going to give you an example just for self-disclosure. I suffer from acrophobia. I'm afraid of heights, or I'm
Mm-hmm.
afraid of falling. I'm afraid of both. And when children are born, they're born pretty much a blank canvas. It's what you invest in them, it's what you put in them, what you instill in them. I was at a playground, and I mentioned earlier that I have twin boys,
Mm-hmm.
and one of my sons was walking across the bridge carefully and just playfully as he could, just as free as a bird. The second son began to walk and he showed fearfulness. And I said, well, where did that come from? Epigenetics is a marker that can be transferred from parent to child. And it doesn't necessarily cause any type of intellectual disability or deformity, but the epigenetic piece is a piece of the marker that resounds within the DNA. So it's like the DNA remembers what the traumatic experience was. So it doesn't augment the intelligence, it doesn't augment the ability of the child to function at a high level, but it does create certain identity markers that cause that child to, whatever you experience, to also have a resounding, what I would like to call sometimes thematic trauma. There's a theme in the trauma, right? So if my theme of my life is I'm fearful, that theme is transposed to my child, and somewhere down the line, at certain ages, my child will begin to experience fear. Fear from what? Fear from me. That's the generational trauma that has been passed down. I've passed my fear, that epigenetic composition of fear, down to my child. It doesn't have to be fear. You know, some people would say it could be anxiety. It could be feeling lonely. It could be experiencing hypersensitivity to police brutality. And that's pretty much the essence of dealing with the epigenetics. It doesn't change the DNA, you know, but it changed certain quality markers within the DNA of that child. And so I'm going to give you another example. If let's use police brutality. Let's use, we can date back to slavery, Reconstruction period, Jim Crow, sharecropping, civil rights. We could go through any era, right? And if my father experienced throughout that time, let's say for instance, my great grandfather experienced fear of losing his wife, right?
Mm.
And all of a sudden they took my great grandfather and they separated them. And they caused them to go separate ways. He lived with the fear of never being able to see her. And the theme, that thematic trauma, is the fact that I will lose what's significant to me. And so what would happen, the great father passes down that epigenetic marker of fear to his child. And then it reverberates and echoes to the next child, to the next child. And by the time I come of age, this is the epigenetic chemical marker. And I want and I wanted to be careful to say this, because what happens, it has to reach a certain stress level. So whatever that stress level was for my great grandfather, if I in turn match that stress level, that's where the epigenetic composition come in place, right?
Oh
if I
my
get to the point of that level of stress, then all of a sudden I will begin to fear. Oh, I'm afraid that I'm going to lose something significant. Where did that come from? And we wonder where, and I hope I'm not moving too fast. We wonder where does that trauma come from? Where does that feeling come from? Where does that experience come from? Why do I feel depressed? Why do I feel lonely? I don't know why I'm angry. We ask ourselves these questions. You have to go back a few generations.
You are really making so much sense. I forgot this sister's name. She's also a clinician. If you remember her while I tell you this story, please say her name. So she was giving a talk about the markers, as you just mentioned. So she was giving everyone a visual of, there's if you can picture a white mother and her son, and a black mother and her son. And so the black mother says to the white mom, oh, you know, Johnny's doing so good in school. They're in, just say, a STEM program, I don't know, and he's doing well, this. And the mom says, yeah, actually he is, and you know, he qualified for this. Okay, she's talking about it and like acknowledging her son's accolades, his achievements. And then the white mom says, oh, well, what about your son? Brandon.
Mm-hmm.
And the mom, this is the Black mom, she says, oh, well, he's okay. He's doing good. But he just gave me a headache last night, and he's got to do better. And so she's downplaying it. So then this clinician said, if you go back generations and picture the same situation on a plantation field,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have Mazda, your boy is doing good. Oh, he's shiftless, sir, and downplaying when the young boy really is doing well. But from my understanding, that mom back in the slavery days, she's downplaying her son's achievements because she doesn't want to lose her son. She doesn't want him to be killed or taken away, because that's a smart Negro right there. We can't have that. She wants her son, her seed with her. So then if you fast forward back to present day, then you hear the Black son is listening to his mom, like, why isn't my mom giving me accolades of my achievements like Johnny's mom?
Mm-hmm.
But there's that secret, that unspoken secret. But about time Brandon is of age, he's bam, generational trauma. And it goes back to that playing small. Have you heard of that before? That sister literally put chill bumps on my arm.
I think that is Dr. Joy DeGruy.
Bam. That's her
Mm-hmm.
right there.
Yes.
Yes.
And that is someone says hi. That is
Corinthia.
Corinthia. And so I think even with that, with trauma and with the reverberating effects of that and epigenetics, I kind of was led to an idea of generational trauma in itself. One of the things I said is that it is an unwitting hand-me-down of adverse assaults on offspring coined as generational curses. It's a hand-me-down. It sometimes, it's unintentional, it's unwitting, and sometimes it
Yeah.
is intentional, where you have a parent who may not know better. You've heard this expression, well, I did the best I can. Mama did, the best she could because that's all she knew what to do, because she had limited resources, limited knowledge, or dad, that's all he did the best he could. And so that generational trauma is an unwitting hand-me-down of adverse assaults that causes individuals to suffer from the effects of trauma. Just like we mentioned with Jim Crow, just like we mentioned with sharecropping and slavery, the lynching. I can name even some massacres, right? The Mississippi Massacre, the Ocoee Massacre. You have the church bombing, and all of those things. You have individuals who actually are living who are survivors. And just imagine how it changes the cognition, it changes the belief system and their experience on earth and in this world. And now you have some parents who are helicopter parents. They're overprotective because of their experience of abuse or trauma. They're overprotective because of certain unfortunate situations that occurred to them in their life, things that were traumatic or distressing and disturbing. And so, but one of the things I definitely would love to provide is insight on different types of trauma. I know we talked about, because we call it generational trauma, but it's interchangeable. It's generational, intergenerational, multi-generational, ancestral trauma. Just it can interchange. It has so many different names to it. But the theme of it is still the same. It's trauma. We've been traumatized. Even watching social media, when we see young men brutalized, when children are in the car and their fathers are shot. Philando Castile. Do you know how traumatizing that little baby will be? Because of police brutality and the families. It echoes, it cascades from parent to parent, from child to parent, then the child becomes a parent, and that cognition, which is the belief system or the thought, right? If I love doing examples. I wish I had some apparatus with me, but just imagine if you're standing at the
That could be
lake.
for the next episode. I'll have you.
Yes. So just imagine if you're standing at a lake. This is how trauma is in the generation of the family through the lineage and the lifespan of families. Just imagine I have a pebble and I'm standing at a lake. If I throw that pebble in that lake, what does it do to the water? It causes ripples. It disturbs the water.
Yes.
It disturbs the water. And I think that's a great analogous because what happens in life, whether it is, and it doesn't matter the size of trauma. It doesn't matter how big or how small the abuse or the disturbance is. The fact alone that it is a disturbance, it has the propensity to be an effect, right? Cause and effect. And so if I have a pebble, I take that pebble and I throw it in the water, it will cause ripples. If I take a large boulder and I throw it in the water, it does just the same. It causes water to become activated. Just as in the family, certain traumas, regardless of how big or how small, it can activate the effects from the trauma. There's a cause and effect. And so I don't want to rob the viewers of being able to give them a little more insight on pre-indicators. What are some of the pre-indicators in families that will give you insight on, am I a victim or am I susceptible to trauma or am I a victim of trauma? Some of the pre-indicators I would say is, if your family has been abused, if your mother or your father has been abused, that's a pre-indicator. If you come from a low socioeconomic status.
Excuse me, can we go back a little bit? Can you give an example? You don't have to go deep into, but an example of what kind of trauma that the parent could have experienced to make it reverberate.
And I'm sorry about that. Yes, I know that we always talk about, sexual trauma. We always talk about physical trauma. I'll do something intangible. Let's just talk about emotional trauma, right? You take a young boy or girl, just whatever your imagination chooses. And from that point, that child is always told, you need to be just like your brother. You're ugly. You can do better than that. You're smarter. Why did you do that? Always snapping and going rah-rah on your child. And that child begins to always flinch because the behavior of the parent is unpredictable. Sometimes the parent may come in, or the parent is an alcoholic parent, or the parent may have hypervigilance or frustrated from the job and exhibit displaced anger, right? You're mad at the boss. Displaced anger is basically when you're mad at the boss or the coworker, but you bring it home, you slap the wife, hit the child, and kick the dog. That's displaced anger, right? So the father has intermittent explosive disorder, IED. And then the father continues to always make it hard to live in the household by having everybody walking on eggshells. That child will eventually start struggling and suffering and being shell shocked from when people become violent, having violence in the home. Or if the parents are always arguing and fighting, and all of a sudden it becomes, explosive and violent. That child becomes traumatized.
Absolutely.
And then I've had clients in some of my sessions that say, well, me and my girlfriend, we argue, or my significant other or my boyfriend, we argue all the time because that's all I know to do. Because why? My mama and my daddy, that's all they did.
Exactly. That's what I saw. Well, that's what I grew up seeing. But there comes to a point where's the self-accountability? But if you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah, you don't know. And and a lot of people will say that the reason why the child acts like it's the environment. The environment influences and nature or nurture. It's a combination of both. It's an amalgamation. It's all of it in one. We can't just, have a single mindset and thinking that it's just one factor. It's multifactorial causes, right? It could be the fact that that child may not have enough food to eat. It could be the fact that the parent is starving the child. The parent is always angry at the child, or the mother has an issue with the dad, or the dad has an issue with the mother. Now the parents are taking it out on the child, which is called triangulation. We may have to do another one of these because I'm loaded with a lot of information that I think will be helpful for a lot of viewers. And so, but
wait, man, I have a question though. So is triangulation the same as relationship trauma? among
No, actually,
parents?
that
No.
that would be, triangle drama, right? The drama triangle. That's the drama triangle. But triangulation basically is when you have one parent trying to butter up the child to be on that parent's side to be against the other parent. Say, for instance,
Mm.
the father is trying to seek favor for the child to distance the mother because the father is at odds with the mother. So that he's trying to get that kid on his team so he can be against the mother, or the vice versa with the mother and the child can be against the father. So that's the triangulation concept.
And how can it not trickle down to the child? There's no way that it cannot.
The,
There's, I just don't see it. I don't see it. I don't
the
see
child
it.
the child is always affected, no matter what, right? Because there's a thing called it's somewhat of inattentiveness, right? The child may not be focused, but the child is always a sponge. The
Woo.
child is always looking because their receptors are open. They're looking to hear, to see, to do, to emulate, to echo, to reciprocate, and to be a carbon copy of the parent. Because the parent is the authority figure that has to model the behavior. And if that child is emulating that, then it rubs off on the child because the parent is the greatest influence in the most sensitive developmental ages of the child, between the age of 2 to 6. The parent is the most influential component and proponent in that child's life. And those are the most formidable years of a child. And some things that children are exposed to can't be unseen, can't be undone, and cannot be erased. It becomes a part of that child's makeup, even the effects of trauma.
Yes, and I believe you let me know that I believe some people, including myself, have experienced so much trauma, childhood trauma, that it's literally second nature. I guess that's that marker you were talking about. And you don't even realize, like, look, that you're emotionally shut down. There's a reason why, or if you have a parent that is verbally and or emotionally abusive, then you're right. You shut down, you have nothing to say,
Yes.
or getting cussed out. Like, that's second nature and
Mm-hmm.
not
Yes.
good. May I read some comments?
Yes. 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 Please.
Wow, I apologize to everybody who's listening that I was so involved in the conversation. I'm gonna have to scroll all the way up. So Lynn, she said, Dr. Grury. I can't. How do you pronounce her last name?
Dr. DeGruy. Some people say
DeGruy.
DeGruy, DeGru. Mm-hmm.
DeGruy. Her information was so powerful in our memory DNA. Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
And Corinthia said, unaddressed generational trauma continues to cripple brown communities.
Mm-hmm.
And Simone says, yes, please do more of these videos. So I guess you got to come back. Hey, Simone, we saw you on our Instagram pregame show. Hey, girl.
Yes.
And Simone also said, see, that's a lot with the baby mama and baby daddy on bad terms. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
Yes.
you all for your comments. And if anybody else, if you have questions for Linton, please, this is the time right now. He knows what he's talking about. So fill up, flood the comment lines. So there's so much to unpack. And
It is.
we didn't even get to the other slides. I want to, but
I know. I
we
know.
can keep going. Oh my God. So where do I go from here? What were you about to say?
Well, I know I kind of did a precursor to talk about factors, pre-indicators, right?
Yes.
People who are, and when I say pre-indicators, is who are predisposed to the effects of trauma, and some of that, and I'm just going to list range down from those parents who have been abused. Poverty is a pre-indicator of potential trauma, as well as being on the low spectrum or low end of the low social economic status, lack of education, right? The educational system, lack of exposure. not having enough to see, not having options, at your fingertips, or being able to access options, as well as there are protective factors too. I know I don't want to just kind of be a little melancholy and dour to talk about just the negative parts, but I think that it's important to kind of help people to gain awareness to see exactly what are the pre-indicators. Am I susceptible? Am I a victim of it? Did it happen in my family? And so some of them, yes. If you've ever, as you mentioned, if you've ever been hit with a switch, just think about where that came from. You're being beaten with a part of nature, not just to correct you, but to punish you, right? I'm being whipped. I'm being beaten. And then even the term itself, beat. Come here, I'm gonna beat you. What do other families say? Our contrasting families. I'm gonna pop you. I'm gonna spank you. The vernacular, right? The vernacular ideology of it, the history of it, comes from the times of slavery, the historical accounts.
Exactly, because a switch is just a modified whip, cat of nine tails.
And that's exactly the echoing effect of trauma. It causes us to adopt certain vernacular, certain belief systems, the way we see the world, right? Because our greats were beaten, right? And so all of a sudden they say, "Come here, boy, I'm gonna beat you," and then we pass that vernacular down. The trauma just not in the doing, but it comes out in language. The trauma is also in the language, not just because the language comes from the cognition. And if we have been somewhat,
can you explain to the listeners what cognition means?
I'm sorry. Yeah, cognition basically is your thought process, how you think, your belief system, how you view the world. Because if I think, I'm gonna give you an example. If dealing with the cognitive part, when I work with my clients, a lot of their relationships and belief system come from how they think. How do you think? How do you view the world? What is your outlook on relationships? And in your relationship, the reason why some people, I'm going to give you a prime example. I do it this way because that's how my daddy taught me to do it with women. My daddy always told me that all women are the same, or my mama always told me all men are the same. That's what she believed.
All men are dogs.
All men are dogs.
Yeah, not good.
That's because because the mother or the father experienced emotional trauma. That trauma echoed throughout the body. It affected the neurological system, caused them to think a certain way. It hit a switch, caused them to think a certain way. Now I'm thinking in a distorted way. I think now because that man dogged me out, and the second man dogged me out, and the third man dogged me out, all men are her. Switch has been clicked on, all men are dogs. Now I'm going to teach my daughter how to get this money, how to get the bag, not trust a man, and just say all men are dogs. That's the cognition. That's the way of the thinking. And so with that, that's the cognitive part. And so it's been handed down. I know you got it. There was a comment that just came in. I had I call her my Zoom mate, Lakeisha.
Hey, Lakeisha. Hey, Zoom mate. I'm going to read Zoom mate's. Okay. I'm going to read her comment. She said, "What do you think the first step is for introducing this topic to old school families?"
That is a very good. That is a very good question, because I know a lot of older generations, we say they're stuck in their ways, and I would say this: sometimes they can be extremely intransigent, right? Unmovable. They don't want to change. They are stubborn. They don't want to, be receptive to any new school teaching, and I think the safest and the best way to actually introduce this to a family member who's old school and stuck in their ways is to get them to begin to talk about their ways, because
but is Big Mama, Madeir, I don't know what other terms Southerners say, grandma, Mom, what are they really going to talk about it?
See, but the thing is
broken.
yeah, and a lot of them won't, but I think that, the conversation won't cause them to change their thought process overnight, but at least it'll get them to be able to begin to talk about what their experience is and what the trauma, not necessarily the trauma. They may not even talk about the trauma. They'll probably talk all around it. Because I know even with my dad, he didn't talk about things that happened when he grew up. He didn't talk about his childhood experience. He only talked about selective portions. And I think, to be able to, someone said, honor their story first. Yeah. And so, I think it starts with a healthy dose of curiosity. Ask them questions. Well, times are changing, grandma or mima or nana or big mama or pop. Times are changing. Tell me about how things were, because right now they're telling us this, that, and the other, right? Mm-hmm. And so tell me about sometimes what happened, in your bringing up and your growing up, because what that will do as they begin to open up and talk, they begin to talk about the vulnerabilities. And as they begin to talk about their vulnerabilities, I wouldn't say that the smart thing to do is to try and be that nemesis or that counterpart to challenge them, but to say, you know what, be an advocate and be an ally and say, but you know what they're saying? This is what they're doing now. What do you think? I love it. Because what that does is it's just a Kickstarter. You're giving them a starter kit to just begin to talk about that. And then you're bringing in the new school concepts, not to change them, but to get them to begin to mull it over, to think about it, right? And and because right now, you have to. I think it's important to identify your role. Are you the planter? Are you the waterer? Or are you one to pluck up the root? And you may not be that person. And so I think it's important to identify your role in having those conversations with them, because you just that's what you're doing. You just creating a starter kit. Let somebody else come in. That
starter kit.
Let somebody else come in, and also, and what may happen if you can find an advocate who can be the nucleus, right? Because for the most part, older generation, we don't know nothing. They still call us babies. We in our 40s. We're in our 40s, and they say our 30s, 40s, right? And they call us babies. So what you have to do, you have to get somebody that is equal to their age, that have experienced that, but has a more liberal thought process, who can think along the lines and be your advocate and say, well, no, wait a minute now, Ethel. Wait a minute now. This Junebug on to something. Ray hitting something now. I remember that. And so, but that's how it is, because if you're planning on taking that topic head on with that seasoned, experienced, traumatic carrier, that person is a trauma carrier. What can you tell them? So it takes somebody who's been there to be able to say, hold on, let's match wit, let's match wounds. I can tell you something different because I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt, and we can share stories. Now let me interject this young bug's information to kind of help you change your thought process. So you need an advocate. You need an advocate to talk about that.
That is genius.
It's tough to take it head on.
Ooh. And I'm really glad you said that, because I never thought about it like that. And that's a great way as a conversation starter, because once, like I say in the beginning of my pods, once you can identify the issues is when you can start to heal.
Yes.
And that's perfect. And that's a good segue. Let me read a comment. Lakeisha said that she loves it. The starter kit she's talking about. And Chantel said, that's good. Chantel, I love your last name. And Lori said, not just their age group, but someone willing to speak it.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point, because there are a lot who are not willing to talk about it.
No, they're not. May I give an example?
Yes, please.
So I have to be very careful with my words. So a while ago, I was at a relative's house, and there was an older relative, and there was just conversation, and my mother was there. You're going to kill me. So the conversation, I won't say what it was, but in my mind, the dates and times were not adding up. So I didn't have the starter kit as you talked about. So I just asked right in front of everyone. I was careful with my words, but I just asked because you know what? Let me just say this. There was no fluff job in the beginning. It was just like, hey, what is this? Meanwhile, my mother is kicking me under the table, meaning like, shut the F up, Ursula. That's what that was. And, I can hear it. So I played small. I asked him one more question and then I just retreated because I didn't want to hear it later. And now 2020, I don't have the answer to that question.
Yeah. And that's what happened. That takes us right back to those who may be opposing to or stubborn or refusing. They're having that intransigent moment where they don't want to face it or talk about it because it could expose certain things in them, right? Certain pains, or it could bring them in a situation to where they may have been a party to the issue.
Right.
They may have played a part in it. But those are some of those pre-indicators, right? Another pre-indicator is silencing the speaker. When you want to talk about things, when you want to resolve things as an individual, but then you have the naysayers, the crowd telling you to shut up, kicking you under the table, pulling your proverbial coattail, telling you, girl, shutting you down and shutting you out, right? Those are some of those pre-indicators to let you know that you could be struggling or being in a family who are suffering from the effects of trauma. They are also protectors, exposure, having healthy engagement, right? Those are the protective factors to protect you from moving forward, suffering from trauma or healing from trauma. Communication, talking about it. I heard somebody say, not I don't want to have the easy talks to make it sound fluff, but I want to have the hard talks to make me grow. Because there was yes, the hard talks will make you grow. And
that hit me in the chest, the way you said it though. How I've heard it in different ways, but the way you said that, wow.
And there was a young lady who said this. Her name is Tabitha Pamira Kaguri. She said, trauma that is not transformed is trauma transferred. Trauma that is not transformed. And what by transform, I want to kind of provide insight to that. If you're not healing from it, if you're not going on the road of recovery, if you're not in the place of being able to rectify or reconcile, then it is going to be transferred down to yours, your offspring. Again, it's a hand-me-down. Trauma is a hand-me-down. And what we call trauma, these are generational curses. I know every Black family, mostly every Black family has said, I don't know, this seems like, my family curse. There's a generational curse. I wish I could break this cycle, this generational curse. What are those generational curses? We don't know what they are. You know what I think they are? This is just coming from Linton. I think these curses could be traumatic experiences that have happened throughout the family that we cannot seem to break because we don't want to address the issues.
Yeah.
A prime example, incest, right? We've also had abuse. My dad was an alcoholic, so my brother was an alcoholic, and then all of a sudden, why is this kid, missing a bridge on his nose or having that disposition on his countenance? Fetal alcohol syndrome. So these things, the trauma shows up physically as well. It's not just tangible or intangible. I'm sorry, it's not just intangible, but it's also tangible. It shows up in our well-being and in our behavior, and it can cause depression. It can cause anxiety. It can cause becoming socially withdrawn. It can cause PTSD, right? And so being able to talk about those things and to get in the groove of healing is the process to start. At least have the conversation, begin to talk about it. But because it's so taboo, we don't want to ruffle feathers. But by not ruffling feathers, right? Someone said this. If everything around you, you're trying to make peaceful. What will happen is it will become a tornado inside of you.
Yes.
If I'm trying to create external peace, then it's causing internal chaos.
That goes back to what you said earlier about the soda can and shaking. There's that tornado. May I interject and read a comment from Quita? She said, "Oh, free gems."
Oh, Quita.
Hey,
Yeah.
Quita. She hit it right there, free gems. And Lakeisha said, my grandma, can you read that? Because my glasses are
It
across the
says,
room. I
yes, it
can't.
says from Lakeisha, it says, my grandmother had her first child at 14, her mom at 18, and also me at 16. I was determined to break that cycle, starting with my children. And that is another cycle of a curse.
It is. It
That's
is.
another cycle. And it's nothing to be discounted about, because it's the reality and it's the normal, but we don't talk about it. You go to a church, and what I experienced a client telling me is that when she was 14 years old and she had a baby, the church put her right in the center of the altar, and all of
Yes.
the elders and all of the ushers began to chastise and give her verbal assaults. That's traumatic.
Trauma. That is trauma.
Yes. And so, and that is pretty much the wavelength and the pattern of trauma that cascades to one generation to the next. It's a hand-me-down, having, that cycle of where, my mom had a baby early, so now all of a sudden, and then what happens, those pre-indicators, it affects you in education, it affects you in income, it affects you in relationship status, it affects the whole psychosocial dynamic of your being. Everything about you is impacted, not to a detriment, but it has its effects, right? There are ways to overcome and to pursue and to counter those moments where it has been unfortunate for you. There are ways to do that. Another one is you look just like your daddy. Now, I want to go from talking about phenotype and genotypes. Phenotype starts with the pH. It's basically the physical aspect of a person. That's when we say, "Oh boy, you look like your daddy." Girl, you look like your auntie, right? That's cyclical. That's generational. Those are the physical parts. And so the genotype is the type that you can't see, dealing with the type of hair, the follicles, or how the things that are underneath the surface, dealing with the genes, those epigenetics and those markers of the chemical markers and things like that. And so one of the things I wanted to talk about regarding the phenotype and the genotype, we don't talk about the impairments, right? And so working with some of my clients, I used to work in kid acute. I used to work in inpatient care, where we have to work with clients who are suffering from schizophrenia, bipolar, a myriad of maladies such as depression, anxiety, some of the high functioning and low functioning aspects of mental illness. And we would always ask in the assessment, does anyone in your family suffer a struggle with a mental illness? Bipolar, schizophrenia, those are compositions of illnesses that can be passed down to generation.
Right.
It's something that can be inherited. And so, but we don't talk about, one of the things we don't talk about is the depression and the anger and why you're so mad. And we wonder why our kids mad for no reason. What is wrong with that boy? He just mad and slamming doors. Oh, his daddy was just like that.
There you go.
Well, okay, well, why was his dad like that? Because his dad was like that. We're going back 3 generations. There's a thing, and I want to preference this. There's a thing called the genogram or genogram, depending on where you're from. If you're from the north, you probably say genogram. If you're from the south, you probably say genogram. You put a little slur on it. And so this thing, which is the genogram, basically is and I'm getting a little ahead of myself, I'm sorry, but this genogram basically is a digital footprint of a family tree. And in that genogram, it goes back 3 to 4 generations. And with that genogram, what it depicts.
Is that the same as the marker?
No, it's different because what happens, it could be a psychiatrist, psychologist, or any kind of clinician, right? What they would do, they would go on using this apparatus and they would formulate the dynamics of the family. They would actually start with, I'm gonna take myself, I'm gonna use myself as the guinea pig. I would take myself, I would start with me, the male would be the square, and the woman would be the circle. So they would
Okay.
take myself, they would draw the line to my wife, who is the circle, and then they would go up to, up even further
Oh,
to my next generation, my mom
yeah.
and dad. Then they would stem the branch going from my mom and dad and address my maternal, my mom's mom and dad. Then they would go to the paternal, my dad's mom and dad. So they would go about 3 or 4 generations. And what they would cipher out are certain defects and malfunctions and issues, such as who died from cancer. What was that relationship like? Was it rigid? Was it diffuse? Was there anybody who struggled with any kind of disengagement, or was there an enmeshment in that family? So we take all of those things and we look at the interaction, the psychosocial experiments or experience that they've had. We also address the type of relationship dynamic that those individuals had with one another. Then we take it deeper and look at the biological factors as far as who died early. Was there a child that was stillborn? And in that, did anybody suffer from cancer, diabetes, hypertension? Those are other generational trauma curses. So we were trying to find out what are the curses. The curses are right in front of your face. If mama died of cancer, mama died of cancer, mama died of cancer, then there's a generational curse there that is traumatic, because you know what happens? When someone dies in the family, you grieve. If everybody bring chicken and mashed potatoes and peas to the funeral and leave you after 2 days after the funeral, you sit there to soak in the grief. The
Yeah.
grief transitions and transposes, and I want to say it augments, it intensifies into what? Depression. You're depressed for 4, 5, 10 to 15, 20 years, persistent depression. That depression plays a part in your children's life. Well, mama was depressed, daddy was depressed, and so now the child is wondering, why am I moody? Because when I'm happy, mommy shut me down and make me sit down and shut up and be quiet because she's depressed. So that
Oh my
mood swing
God.
and that maladaptive behavior is cascaded down to the child. And now you're wondering why your child acting up in school, because they never got a chance to go to therapy to resolve the grief from mama, from the depression that mama experienced because of the death of mama that had the cancer. Now mama got cancer because she's depressed and stressed, and her cortisol level does not regulate the stress.
Oh my God.
So
You
it's not
so on point.
so it's not just clinical, but it's biological, psychosocial, it's neurological. So it's all of these factors that it's amalgamation that makes up the person. So we're convoluted with a lot of complexities, and it's not just depression in itself, right? Um,
It could be
Depression,
anger.
it could be anger, right?
Let me
Yeah.
tell you, man, can I interject? I was listening to this brother. He is a diagnosed narcissist,
Mm.
but he's a self-aware. Well, he got an argument with his wife and he's angry. I mean, it's horrible. She got in an argument, and one time she's like, it's hard dealing with you being a narcissist. He ended up going to therapy.
Mm.
He found out he is diagnosed. So
You
now
say he's
he's going
narcissistic.
back.
He's a narcissistic.
He is a narcissist.
You're not
Like,
talking about that Jackson dude, are
no, I know.
you? I'm
You know
just
what?
joking. Do a
That
video of yourself. Do
boy,
a video of yourself. That's narcissism. A
he's
trait, a feature. Yeah.
huge. That boy, don't even get me started on him. But yes,
Yes.
but not him. So anyway, once he's going to therapy and he's telling his therapist, hey, now I'm thinking about it. I'm acting like my father. That goes back to what you're saying. His father was angry, arguing all the time, and it pretty much shut all the kids down. He was emotionally detached from his family. So now this brother, he's like, I'm gonna go on ancestry.com and see what's going on with my dad's dad. Comes down to it that it was dated everything at just say September 25th at 8:05 a.m. The grandfather went into the bathroom, boom, shot himself in the head while his family is in the kitchen.
The next room. Wow.
So this is the man talking about his grandfather. So then who's to say what was the grandfather going through when the grandfather was a child? So I see what you're talking about with the what is it? The genotypes?
The genogram?
Genogram, excuse me. Yeah.
And see, and that's the thing, Ursula, is that, we talk about tangible things as far as when my boys get older, there are some things I want to hand down to them that are tangible. I would love to give them, we give our kids necklaces and rings and things like that. These heirlooms, right? A woman or mother would give her daughter the wedding ring or a wedding dress, or they would give them, well, baby, get pearls. They hand these things down to their children. But what we don't talk about are the invisible heirlooms, right? The dysfunction. Dysfunction is an heirloom that we can hand down to our children. We always talk about various heirlooms such as, I want my child to have this trunk, or I want my kid to have this blanket, or great grandma want us to pass the dishes, or the china set down, so they can keep that in the family, or get this curio. Baby, I always had in the family. Well, what else has been in the family besides the curio, besides the dishes, besides the jewelry and those things? What else is in the family that's an heirloom that we are nose blind to? Because some of us can be nose blind to a lot of things within ourselves and within the family that we are too afraid to neutralize. And so some of those things that we're nose blind to is or that our heirlooms are, again, the dysfunctions, such as secrets, taboos, the curses, the frustration, the depression, and just the incest, all of those things. These are dysfunctions that we hand down, that are heirlooms to the next generation or to our offspring, and they're left with the residue or the breadcrumb, and they have to find ways to pick up the pieces without a clue, because we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to go to therapy. We don't want to be the one to say, okay, baby, you know what? You're right. It was me. I'm the one that separated us from the family. I'm the one that stopped seeing this uncle and that uncle, and I moved us to way across the state because I was mad at this one. Or I built a McDonald's across the street because I was mad at Burger King. So we go and relocate and be in competition with other family members, when all of a sudden now there's this thing that's called disengagement, right? We're disengaged with family. And all of a sudden we wonder why we got cousins way in New York and we live way in the South, because Uncle Bob got mad at cousin JJ because he slept with this person, or they got into a fight or got into a knife fight, and mama got sick because she was heartbroken and died. She died of a broken heart.
Wow.
And nobody ever talks about, well, why did Uncle so-and-so kill Uncle so-and-so? And I'm wondering why I got family way in Florida, but I got family in New York too. And both of them are named Raya or Hester or Jason or Jackson. You know those black names. Jackson Johnson.
Jenkins.
Jenkins. And we know that. And so those are the curses. And, and we're wondering why. I'm not really I don't really subscribe to being hyper religious or anything, but this thing says, give us this day our daily bread, right? Sometimes we're given the bread, but we don't recognize that it's our bread. It's given to you already. Give us this day our daily bread. We're praying for it, asking for it, but when it falls in your lap, you don't want to eat it. That's not that mine. Part. But you prayed and asked for it. You wanted the generational curse to be broken. You wanted to be able to do better. You wanted to be able to move forward and heal. But all of a sudden, you've been praying and asking for that type of bread. But when it lands in your lap, I ain't want that. I don't eat wheat bread.
Right.
I don't eat white bread.
The hard conversations, it's uncomfortable. It's going to hurt. But they're so necessary if it's important to anyone who wants to cease that generational curse. It's all about taking that first step, be that champion to do that. Oh my God, there's so many comments I want to read. I thank you
Okay.
all,
I'm sorry. I'm
Chantel.
running off. I'm sorry.
No, I'm loving this. You know what? If you all want Hester to come back,
There was a lot more I have to unpack. I hadn't even really
oh,
got into the meat and potatoes, but I think that it's,
that's
I know
the
you got to do
beauty
your
of
comments, so
this.
I'm gonna be
No,
silent for right now.
no, 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 no. Well, I will. I wanted to show that graph. I'm wondering if I should show it next time. You know, the one with the 3 tiers?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, and it's a good segue. Someone said, I think it was Chantel. She asked, so how can the cycle be broken? So I'm going to show you all a graph, which is beautiful. And Linton is going to answer that question. And while he answers that question, I'm going to pull up the graph so that people can get a visual of it and what it looks like. So, Linton, how can the cycle be broken as we start to wrap up or press
I th-
pause until the
okay.
next?
I think that one of the ways the cycle can be broken or can be attacked is being able to acknowledge where you are in that generational curse, right? It's all about awareness. How are you affected? That's the first thing. And not only that, but what identifying what has been the theme in your life. What has been the theme of trauma? What has been the theme of issues and problems and the reoccurring challenges that has been in your life, right?
Mhm,
Identifying that. Some people have a theme of I feel lonely, I feel depressed. So you have to go with the reoccurring theme that has been resonating in your life. What's been showing up? What has been most consistent?
mhm.
That has caused you to live that maladaptive life, and begin to investigate. That's the first thing. You have to acknowledge, right? Acknowledge what's been happening in your family, the things that are hard to face, the things that are hard to talk about, and acknowledge that. Go back into your generations. Look at the roots. Look at the divisions, the dissensions. Look at and as I mentioned earlier in this on this platform, I say look at the thematic traumas. What has been the theme or the resounding sound in your life, right? You have to look at that, and then you have to do your own investigation. Because
Right.
keep in mind that just because it is your time and your moment to kind of pull back that proverbial rug and look at all the dirt that is mounted up doesn't mean it's everybody else's time to join in on that wagon. So you may be a lone ranger. It may just be you who's inquiring and curious. Um, the third step is have a healthy dose of curiosity, and be prepared for the unexpected. Be prepared, because there may be some family members who may be against it, who may go against the current of your inquisitions.
Mhm.
And and you may even become trepidatious about it, uncertain. And so, acknowledge it, do your own investigation, identify the theme that's been, circulating in your life. What has been that theme? If you have questions of saying, why do I feel, where did that come from? Those are things, that's pulsating in your life, that's trying to get your attention. And it could be the very case of say, hey, you're the one that's supposed to be the
Mm.
the activator to try to break this curse. You're the one. You are the cavalry.
You are the
Sometimes
chosen one.
you are the chosen one. And
Yes.
then and then in that too, you have to find your own wisdom. I think that's important, to come to self-actualization and be strong enough to be strong enough.
Ooh.
You have to be strong enough to be strong enough, because you're going to get some kickback. You're going to get some lag. You're going to get family members who say, boy, don't you open up Pandora's box. Well, why are you asking that? Why do you want to know? And so, you have to do your own investigation, be strong enough to be strong enough. And you really have to, um, be able to come into your own wisdom, and I cannot say this enough. Seek out a therapist, right? Because it's the
Mhm.
therapist's job to help you explore territories that you have not explored before. It's
Mhm.
uncharted terrain. You've never really, delved into it, gotten into it. So you have to have that support, and you have to have that soundboard to be able to have that outlet, because if not, You're going to eat it up. You're going to implode, and it may cause some corrosion within your own life, some dissension and some separation from family. So you have to be, again, one of the things I would say that what would not be revealed would never be healed.
Ooh.
If it cannot be revealed, it cannot be healed. So you can't always allow it to fester in the dark, because even fungus grows in the dark.
Wow.
And so I hope I was able to answer your question to some degree, but it starts with you. It starts there.
Some of us, we don't realize the potential and strength that we have, and it's just to go out on that limb. And once, like I said before, it will be uncomfortable and everything that Linton said, but we are resourceful people. We are beyond magical. And I'm talking about melanated people. Take our power back.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Build that power back up. Exactly, Simone. She reiterated what you said. Even fungus grows in the dark. Woo.
Yes.
Yeah,
it does.
Sis, that hit my soul too. My God. God bless you and your wife with the children, your seeds. This is what I envision. This is what a secured, attached family looks like. You have some kings right there, boy. That's a blessing. I love that. I don't even know them, and I applaud these young kings in the making. God bless you and your wife. That's what we need more of. And it's not too late for any of us. Even if you don't have a family, even if you're a single person, it's never too late to work on your personal development.
Never. You're right. You're right. You're right.
So I'm going to put that graph up just so people can see what it looks like when, as a matter of fact, this is a good segue because, you talked about, and I'm looking at the first generation, you talked about your father, and then you have you as a second generation and talking about you and your wife's young kings that you are raising, the third generation. And this is what it looks like right there.
Yes. It's a snowball effect. If you imagine in the mountains, right? And when that snowball begins to roll, it cascades down the hill and it happens fast, right? You have really no time to react. And so in this illustration, it says the first generation experiences abuse and trauma at various levels, varying levels, right? In many aspects of life. And so that it's not just emotional, it's not just financial, it's not just the things that are tangible, but these are intangible traumas as well, things that you can't see, things you cannot put your hands on. And it says that the experiences go unchecked, and that is one of the key markers there. When you don't really acknowledge, or you move from, when you stay in a place of contemplation rather than actuation. And so you have to start making moves towards the healing process and not allow the trauma to go unchecked. And it's coded in the genes. We talked about that, epigenetics. We talked about it being, in the area of your emotions and how your kids respond and react, because these are, again, of invisible wounds that are passed down to your children. And then from that, in the second tier, it talks about the second generation. And the second generation is aware of the generational trauma and the dysfunctions because they see it in the parent. But how do I combat, being like my mama? Because I heard some people say, I don't want to be like my mama. I don't want to be like my daddy. And so there was a wise woman who told me before, and I have to give her credit. Her name is, Micheline Sims, my lovely aunt, who I've been privileged to be adopted into the family. She said, you become what you despise. You become what you despise. The thing that you hate the most, let's say, for instance, you have a father and a son. The father is mad at the son, so he stopped talking to the son. You know what the son does? He stopped talking to the dad. So he distances himself from the son. He distances himself from the father. So he's becoming the very thing he despised. Wow. The son is becoming just like the father. And so with
That
that,
goes back, excuse me, that goes back to on the right side of that the second generation unconsciously repeats the generational trauma patterns. Wow.
yes, yes, these are patterns. And those patterns, and I like to call them those reactionary patterns, right? They're dysfunctional. And if you know anything about dysfunction, dysfunction is basically something that's abnormal, something that is detrimental. It's like an illness or a sickness. So you have to look at the pattern of sickness that's happening in your family. And that pattern is handed down. It doesn't come in the form of a cough. It doesn't come in the form of flu, but it comes in the form of anger, frustration, neglect, not being an absent dad, being a mother who is probably promiscuous, bringing in other men in the house. And all of a sudden, that pattern of dysfunction, the daughter brings up. And then all of a sudden, the daughter becomes a stripper. She becomes promiscuous. She hates herself. And so all of those internal factors, and she ends up, I'll say this proverbially, she ends up internally bleeding.
Right.
She suffers from an emotional hemorrhage. She's hemorrhaging emotionally. And the same goes with the son. I put out a post and said that, sons also need warm love. They don't just need hard lessons and a stiff hand. They need warm love too. Because what you do as a father, if you're so hard on your son that you tell him that he should not have any chinks or kinks in the armor, you're causing him to build quite the tolerance to be intolerable.
Wow.
And you're making him emotionally unavailable for not just his wife, but also, or for his husband. I mean, the way times are flying these days, we're very inclusive. So I don't want to eliminate, the dynamics of all parts of a family. And so that person becomes emotionally unavailable for wife, and then he becomes emotionally unavailable for his children.
Wow.
And so that dysfunctional pattern, we want to be mindful of the dysfunctional pattern, which is toxic. It creates toxic relationships, toxic entanglement, coalitions, triangulation, enmeshment, pseudo hostility, pseudo mutuality, all of these things, right? And then for the next generation, the third tier says more likely to choose healthy relationships, because after a while, the trauma begins to wane, and it moves from being surface trauma to insidious trauma. Oh man, that was fresh off the press. It becomes.
I felt that, brother. I felt it.
It transformed from being tangible, obvious trauma to insidious trauma. I got something going on in me and I don't know what it is. I can't put a finger on it. I don't know. It's insidious. It grows inside of you. And all of a sudden, eventually, it will manifest, and then it will begin to affect your relationships. And we wonder why, like, I don't know, for some reason, I got this urge. I just want to sleep with other women. I got this urge where, I don't want to be with him. I just feel I feel strange, because it's insidious. It's a trauma that has been reverberated, that is echoed, and that is cascaded down to you through epigenetics.
Oh my God.
Those markers.
Man, I'm telling you, I could talk to you literally for hours and hours. Oh my God.
I just appreciate you for giving me the opportunity to lend my voice to this topic. I am very grateful for it, because we don't get a chance to talk about it in the open space like this. And because you have this platform, we have a voice to put it out there in the world. And I definitely appreciate that.
Oh my God. I am very grateful and honored that you said yes. It's just something about your aura. We never met like physically face to face, but I felt it through that post. Remember on Instagram on the DMV? Yes, on Dion's page.
Yes.
What they're talking about. Let's see what he's and there you go. That's how spirit works. I really believe that. I know it. I feel it here. And things happen for a reason. It's not a coincidence. And for you to share your knowledge, that is Celeste,
wow.
Celeste, the therapist. She says she loves this conversation.
I got a chance to listen to Celeste when you had her on. Um, Forgive me for not being able to.
You had her on twice.
Yes. Oh my goodness,
Isn't
yes.
she amazing?
I mean, a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of information, and just that that essence of who she is just really emanated from the screen. So I was awesome. How you doing, Celeste?
She is fucking amazing. Like for real. She is. I'll tell you offline. I mentioned it on her show, but I'm gonna tell you how we connected. But yeah, I've gone literally, I binged on all now about 75% of her episodes.
Mm,
And it's authentic, it's real. That's like how she was from when she
wow.
first started. She got it going on right here
Yeah.
and here. Beautiful
Awesome.
spirit.
Yes.
So we're gonna wrap it. We'll wrap it up, but we're just pressing pause on this because I know a lot. I mean, while we're talking, I had to turn my phone off because it was buzzing, and I took a peek at it. So people are. These are just
Okay.
these are my text messages that people are asking about you.
Oh wow, wow. Well, I
Yeah.
appreciate that. You know, and I'm gonna just kind of be very concise to say this that I love, and I know they label us as the BIPOC community, but I love our people. I love our family of
Yeah.
community, and that's one of the reasons why I got into therapy, because I did not see a lot of us, and there's a need to be able to heal from that because I think that with all of the police brutality, all of the ambiguity that's out there because news outlets have a way of tricking us with verbiage and saying things that we don't really mean, and I think that we need to have people that look like us that can communicate to us. I mean, from
Mhm.
sectors of the judicial system to the political system to the clinical system, the medical system. We need us out there, so
Yes.
that we will be able to not have to code switch, not have to dress up our language, but we can be ourselves and be able to send that information out there to those who may not be able to access it. And so I really I've dedicated my career, my life to being
Yeah.
able to be a healing voice to our people, in the therapeutic
Mm.
in the therapy and
Mm.
therapeutic realm, because there are not a lot of us, and we need to have these talks, and we need somebody to help become that GPS system to navigate us through the terrain
Yes.
of losslessness. And it's out there,
Yes.
so if we don't do
Absolutely.
it, we need to do it, because nobody else is going to do it to us. And I'll say this: one of the things that really irritated me in my undergrad is the fact that there were writers of textbooks that wrote all about the African Americans, wrote all about Latino people, wrote all about the Asians, but I did not see one chapter about Caucasian people, right? And I and that really caused me to really change my direction on who I wanted to serve.
Mm.
And I really believe that there's a difference between when you study people and when you research people. When you study people to take advantage of. When you research
Mm.
people to learn about them, to help them. And we've been studied for far too long.
That's deep.
And in the
That's
textbook, it
deep.
exhibits that. It displays that so kindly and unkindly, that we have been studied, that Black people respond this way and we act that way. We've been studied. And we haven't really been researched to be able to help find remedy and to find solution and to help us in the process of collective healing. There's been
That's so
collective
good.
trauma happening around us for decades. Now it's time for us to be the cavalry and to be the collective healing voice. And so
Absolutely.
that's just
Yes.
what my passion is. Um and I'm gonna just quiet myself because I've just been just monopolizing a little too much.
Oh
I'm
no,
sorry. That's my passion. I'm
Ryan,
sorry.
it's never monopolizing the conversation. It's about learning, sharing the knowledge that you have so that we can also learn. And like you said, you being a conduit. No, this is it's never monopolized. Matter of fact, I will piggyback on what Celeste said. This will truly expand us knowing about generational trauma, she says, thank you. I gotta have you on. You are super dope. Yes, Celeste, I agree. So I definitely want you to reach out to her or vice versa. But she's on my, just look her up, Celeste the Therapist. She follows me, I follow her, and you'll see it. And contact her. I mean,
I will.
Oh,
I will. We got to stay connected. You know, it's a collective effort for collective change. And I think that, you know, as I mentioned earlier, we have to move from contemplation to actuation. We got to start putting our hands to the plow, and we're doing it. I think that, you know, we can do it in a more massive and effective way if everybody know that we're all doing it together, you know, so that we're not duplicating services of healing, but that we're moving forward in that. So, but I appreciate you again. I appreciate all of the viewers, the supporters, those who joined in, who connected. Thank you all for the support, and thank you again for Ursula, for you being who you are. Black girls getting a shift together. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Oh my God. You are a gem to the community.
Wow.
Yeah, love it. And with that being said, I definitely qualify you as a brother who has his shift together.
Thank you. Thank you.
So everyone, we are definitely going to have, I can't even imagine how many parts to this. I really don't even see us finishing on a part 2, but I won't be greedy, but we're definitely, I'm going to, once we get offline, I'm going to see if we're going to work it out to press pause and press play again. But anyone, if you hear my voice, you hear Linton's voice, please like, share this video. It's really about healing, and Linton's contact info is in the description box right now. So as soon as we finish, just click on it. His website is there. It's Live Better Now. Follow him, and we're going to keep this conversation going. Thank you, everyone, again, for participating in your comment. You know, we're learning from you as well. We got to keep it going. Yes. Oh, yeah, for sure. Thank you, Lynn. I love you. Thank you, Celeste. Celeste put she also put your website in the comments. So this was great. Yeah, my heart is full. My soul is truly vibrating right now. It's going to be hard to go to sleep tonight. I get excited when I talk to you, for real.
It's mutual. You know it. It's mutual.
Yeah, sign up for the newsletter. And Celeste said she already signed up for the newsletter. I have too.
Okay. Awesome. Yes. Okay, awesome.
Great, thank you so much. I love everybody and your comments, and we will reconnect. See you next week.
For the queens, sisters manifesting their dreams. Get your cream by any means and beam with self-esteem. Beauty supreme and booty walk so mean. The way you fit in them jeans, you eat your cornbread and greens. Dance or a doctor, red wine or vodka. Redesign your spot and redefine your mantra. Retwist your locks and realign your chakras. Doing your squats and getting closer to God, huh? Brunching with your squad or taking a girl's trip. Adjust your crown, you God's gift to the world, sis. Celestial body, drink your water. Meditate, sun-kiss goddess, heavenly order. Levitate, tribe of Ashanti, black girl magic, melanin popping, whether you ratchet or lavish, whether you bougie or savage, you a gift and a treasure. You got to love a black girl getting a shift together. Black girls are getting a shift together. These black girls getting a shift together, man. These black girls are getting a shift together. These black girls getting a shift together, dog. Only a real Timberlake, you know my state of being. Stay strong. I gamble, hustle,